for. But I would like to begin my remarks with a sincere thank you to the United Steelworkers who came to our aid after Katrina and helped us get back into our homes. I will always be grateful for the support that the Steelworkers gave me. I would also like to give a shout out to the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, and specifically the Hazardous Waste Worker Training Program and the Minority Worker Training Program, that has really done a tremendous job supporting worker training programs for people who need a hand up. The program has made a difference in environmental justice communities, and I thank you for your support. So I was asked to reflect on the Environmental Justice Executive Order, and as I reflect, it is significant to note that it has been 20 years since the signing of the order. Since that time, on the one hand, much has changed, but on the other, everything is the same. The executive order brought serious attention to the dangerous exposure of minority and poor communities to environmental pollution. That order triggered a response from federal agencies by charging them to include environmental justice as a part of their missions. In addition, it created a mechanism for working together to address environmental justice issues through interagency working groups. The executive order raised the importance of protecting the environmental health of minorities and the poor to the highest level in our government, the Office of the President. Since that time, there has been an explosion within the research community, creating a huge body of literature and developing a unique field of study we have come to know as environmental justice, while turning the pursuit of its study and addressing its issues into the environmental justice movement. The Environmental Justice Executive Order made a tremendous contribution to this movement that we EJ leaders have painstakingly given birth to and nurtured over the years. I would characterize the order as the legitimizer of the movement. Of course, there are those of us who are activists working with communities, researching, examining impacts, and documenting the struggle of EJ communities around the globe. We demonstrated, advocated, and actively engaged governments, always knowing that the EJ cause was a righteous one. Through it all, we recognize that convincing others to care about the cause would be one of the greatest yet most worthwhile challenges of our career. The executive order made environmental justice a legitimate parameter within our government and resulted in the development of a structure and the creation of a process from within governments to provide resources to agencies to address, as they defined it, disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects on minority and low-income populations. In that my work has centered around the Louisiana-Mississippi River Chemical Corridor, infamously known as Cancer Alley, I thought that today would be a good day, that being the 20th anniversary of the Environmental Executive Order, to reflect on environmental justice successes in my own state, where some of the most egregious offenses and caustic fights took place. At the beginning of our struggle for environmental justice in Louisiana, we were particularly outraged at the enormous amount of toxic emissions being released in the corridor by chemical companies, and the enormous number of industrial accidents, worker exposure, and injuries endemic to the corridor. In 1985, the chemical corridor that stretches for 85 miles and lines the Mississippi River between the cities of New Orleans and Baton Rouge was releasing over 700 million pounds of toxic emissions into the environment. In 1987, when the industry was required to report to the toxic release inventory, they reported releasing over 1 billion pounds of extremely dangerous chemicals into the environment. In 2012, the latest reporting numbers that we have show that that number is now under 200 million pounds. An amazing feat, moving from about 1 billion. This is good news for communities and workers, but not for every community or every worker. Although the overall emissions in the corridor are greatly decreased, minorities and the poor still live fence line and live closest to polluting facilities, and workers are still exposed. But the number of communities living near facilities in the corridor has decreased due to community relocations and buyouts, and to the ability of organized communities at times to stop the siting of facilities in their communities. And the number of worker accidents and exposure have also gone down for the same reasons. The Environmental Justice Executive Order was the beginning of a means to an end, and over the course of time has provided us with the basis for establishing a credible argument for the protection of human health under these incredible circumstances, those being disproportionate exposure to environmental pollutants. We have seen progress. We have increased awareness and educated communities. We have formed alliances, one of which is with workers and unions. All of these things are things that we should be happy about when we look back over 20 years. But we still have a very long way to go. And as we say in the movement, power to the people. Thank you.